The difference when you add plugins on your mix was much more noticeable. Plugins do something when you're mixing in the box, rid of that space, and just everything sounds a little bit more brittle and not as open.
Welcome back to another episode of the Session Recall podcast.
Hello, John. Hello, everyone.
Yep, nice t-shirt, Nick. Very good.
Yes, this is the Flip Flop Records one sent to me by Scott Milligan. I might mention that last week in last week's podcast.
In the perfect angle as well, yeah.
I try to set it up exactly the same. I mean, I've probably got slightly more beard now than I did last week, but I tried to make it look exactly the same as last week, John.
Yeah, I know. It's really important, especially on Spotify, where you can't actually see what you look like. But if you did want to watch the podcast on YouTube, you can find us at Session Recall.
I have washed the t-shirt's been washed. I haven't worn it all week. Just so what are we talking about then, Jonathan?
Today, what we want to talk about is following on, I suppose, a little bit from last week when we were talking about producing and producers.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we're thinking about is really like about mixing, and I suppose like the approach that you kind of take for mixing, or approach that we have for mixing when it comes to mixing tracks for ourselves, mixing with productions, or when people send us stuff, and what we can kind of look at doing to make the most out of that.
That's with everything, different approaches, different artists. So if it's something I've recorded, then generally, as I'm recording, I'm kind of building the mix, building the album, getting it to kind of how I've got it in my head and how the band wants it as we go, as kind of much as you can. So I'm tweaking it, I'm building effects in, and maybe setting up how I would want it for mixing as we're recording. Because then maybe you've got to mix 2 songs a day because of budgets or whatever. So you can't do all that stuff if you're mixing 2 songs a day because you're eating up into so much of your mix time. But the beauty is if you've recorded it and it gets sent to me to mix, or if I've recorded it and I'm mixing it, is I know it's going to be well recorded, well labeled, everything's going to be laid out, and it's virtually going to be ready to start mixing on, and it will already have some elements of the mix on it, which you'd have put on or I'd have put on. So then you're just basically building it. How do you make it pop out where it needs to pop out? What's kind of wrong with it? Is it muddy here or there? Or does it need elements brought out? And you're not spending loads of time comping vocals or fixing people's edits, because the amount of stuff I get sent where they haven't done any crossfades on anything just really pisses me off. Because you spend a couple of hours fixing people's bad edits, tuning vocals, comping stuff, and then you haven't got any time to mix it. But so if we've done it, then it's kind of ready. And then I won't strip that back. If I think the song's sounding good and that's those effects are on there for a reason, because they're integral to the song. That's why I try and record a lot of that stuff. If a guitar is going to have a big echo on it or whatever, or a slap delay, then we've got analog effects that we can record that, so that you don't have to recreate it afterwards. It's integral to the track, then it should be on there. So I wouldn't strip that back and look at, maybe sometimes if it's a plugin, the delay's not working or something, so I might switch it out for something else. But I would tend to, that would be my starting point of the mix, and then I would move stuff around from that. If I think the drum sound's not working, I might go into that if I'm going to add some samples or do whatever. When I get something I haven't recorded, so I maybe aren't as familiar with, obviously wouldn't be as familiar with the ins and outs of the track and all the elements to it, then the first thing I'll do is try and get the mix up, everything up as quickly as possible. So a quick tweak, a quick balance, a quick look at stuff, get it all up so I can hear all the elements and start to hear what's making it work, what's driving the track. Is the bass driving it? Is the drums driving it? Is the guitars? What kind of frequencies are going on between all the instruments? So what am I going to need to do technically to this? And get it up really quick. I've seen other engineers, mix engineers and producers who will solo the kick drum, work on a kick drum, solo the snare, work on the snare, solo the tom, solo the overhead, and get all these great sounds individually, then move on to the bass, then move on to the guitars, but you're not hearing how they're working together then.
As a whole.
And then, and they start building it up with plugins, and there's plugins, and there's plugins, and there's plugins. And then you've lost so much like headroom and so much of what the actual song is about, that sometimes you then strip all that off and you go, oh, actually, it sounds really good without any of this. You think you're improving it by adding this loads of like chains and stuff, and all of a sudden you haven't improved anything, and it's a mess. So I don't like to solo stuff individually and work on individual instruments. I like to get everything up so I'm hearing the song and hearing all the elements really early on. And actually, when I mix an album, I won't finish a song, so I'll do that to each song. So maybe I'll do 3 or 4 in a day where I get it all up, and I'll start to build the drum sound, start to hear what I like about that and add things onto that. Some EQ on things and hear what's going on, some vocal effects, get the track, and then move on. So I might do 3 or 4 in a day, then the next 3 or 4, and then after 3 days, I've kind of got the whole album mixed to a point where it would probably be like that if I had recorded it, or where the stage I'd be at the end of production. And then I'll go back to song 1, because you've learned so much about the album and so much about all the elements and the guitar sounds and the drum sounds, and you might find things along the way that work, and then you go back and apply that to the first one. But you've started to build up a really big picture of the album, a really good feel for what's actually going on there. And then I'll go back and I'll finish them off. So I'll go back and I know, right, I can do 2 or 3 of these in a day now, because they only need a couple of hours each, 2 or 3 hours each. And then I might go in, tweak the drum sound, and like the drum sound needs to be heavier, or the drum sound needs to be more aggressive, or whatever. And then mess with some effects and make sure the song's working as it should do. And then the album, what's to come, all the other songs then, because you've got them all up to a point. And then I'll go through, and that's just my way of working. When I mix it, I just find it difficult to just approach on an album just one song at a time if you don't know the album, if you haven't recorded it.
It's a good way of doing it. When you're only mixing the albums that you've recorded yourself, would you do the same kind of thing? Would you still like batch and go through each one and then come back? Or is it more because you've kind of had like a much longer time working on the session?
Working on it, then I don't necessarily need to do that, and a lot of the stuff, the technical things I would have addressed during the production thing. So we're kind of almost there with the drum sound, and then there might be some things where I might not, switch out some plugins and use like an outboard compressor or chain or something, or run it through something and record it back in, or some outboard effects or whatever. But essentially then it always ends up in the box, but I might have recorded analog stuff and outboard back in, but I'm mixing in the box even though we've got desks and things, because you need to do so many mix changes and tweak things and do things later on and down the line, and the instrumentals and all these different things. Just mixing the box makes that so much easier for people to come back to you. It's because of the time, and time is money. All the mix changes you end up doing, if you had to recall every mix and put it through an analog desk and set up all the outboard, it would just be a headache now on the time that we've got. I mean, we used to have to do that. That's what we used to do. I kind of enjoy mixing stuff I've recorded because I know what I'm getting, and I know what I need to do and what needs to be done. And I'd have done all the editing and comping. You know what I'm like. I say to all the assistants that come in, I don't want to be left with a load of edits at the end of it. So I'm always, when I'm recorded, I'm always editing. And that little point where we've got to take instead of just chatting, I'm busy just editing, getting those crossfades done, getting those edits done, and moving on. I never like to leave myself a ton of editing to do at the end of a session.
It's the thing is that the crossfades are the ones that always end up like taking loads of time.
Yeah.
I remember coming on a session and just like walking into a mix, and it's like I spent an hour on each song. Just going literally, like I had to take tab to transient off and just do tab across each thing to crossfade.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, and we get stuff sent all the time. Like the big mix engineers they'll have a list of how the mix needs to be presented to them, and you have to stick to that. And if you don't, they won't touch the mix until it's like it. Someone,
is it Mike Fraser?
Yeah, Mike Fraser. So he likes to have his like it just come off a 24 track tape machine or 48. He mixes 48 outputs onto his SSL like it's 2 tape machines. So you have no regions, no edits. You consolidate everything. You take all your plugins off, but if the plugin's integral, you need to record it back in. It can only come out of 48. There can only be 48 tracks, only 48 outputs. If you've got loads of backing vocals, do a bounce, because it has to come out of only so many. Everything has to be split on its own track, so you've got to get it down. Do the bounce, but you can leave him in there, because if he feels like he needs to go in and rebalance stuff, he can. But do the bounce all your acoustics, because you might have hundreds of tracks. You've got to get down to 48. And no edits to do, so he's just mixing. He's not editing and fixing your things. And we get a lot of the time you get asked to mix something, and you've got 2 songs a day, which is essentially 5 hours a mix. Then you get it, and they go, "Oh, by the way, there's still we haven't comped the vocals. Maybe that's something you could do, or the vocals need tuning. Can we have a quarter delay on this guitar here? We really feel it needs to do this and it needs to do that. There's some other takes if you prefer the solo and all that." And it's like, that's just eating up 3 hours of your mix time.
It goes back to like last episode where we were talking about making decisions.
Yeah, and now it's 3 hours of your mix time gone. So now you've got 2 hours to mix a song, and we're not Jesus. We can't do miracles. So it's like it's a 2-hour mix, regardless of how good equipment we've got and how good we are at doing it. It's a 2-hour mix. And then they'll say, "Oh, well, on my demo mix, my snare drum, my drum sound, I preferred that I had that on the demo mix." And I was like, "How long did you spend on that?" "About a month." And I'm like, "Right, so you had a month to get that right, and we got 2 hours
Yeah.
because we've been busy doing production stuff." And then you've got into the realms of, right, so am I going to charge for this, the editing and the comping and the fixing, and then charge for the mix? Because you're doing production work, you're not mixing, you're doing production and engineering. So it's always a battle. So you'd like to get them to send you something that's ready to mix. Otherwise, you have to factor in the extra time for the comping, for the vocal tuning, and you can't possibly then do 2 mixes in a day. And that needs to be factored in. So you need to stop at the beginning, stop before you even go ahead and say, right, all this needs sorting. It's going to take me 2 days, so I need to add 2 days onto the mix time. That's how long it's going to take me to do all this editing and production.
And then you mentioned about obviously like mixing in the box. Do you notice a difference? Like, do you miss mixing with hardware, or like do you
Yeah,
is
but
it an issue anymore?
plugins are really good. Yes, we do use some hardware. Obviously, when we were tracking, we use hardware. But the thing is, when it's someone like Rockfield and you're going through those old mic pre's with great mics, and you're getting all that kind of graininess and loveliness from driving the pre's and all that, and it's gone through outboard 1176s and smart compressors and all that, then you don't really need that again in the mix process, because it's gone through all that analog loveliness. It's got all that stuff there. So, that's using plugins. You don't need to redo it. You don't need to add another 1176 compressor on your bass if you've recorded your bass through an actual 1176 driven through some nice BBC mic pre's or something. So there's this tendency from people to put stuff on straight away because it's what they do. That's a vocal, therefore it needs this. Used to work with some producers, and a guy called Bob Rose used to tell me, he asked me to set up the vocals for him, and I would put the mic up, and then I was busy plugging in a chain for him, like the Neve EQ and the 1176. And he was like, "We don't need that yet." He says, "I never ever put it on until I've listened to what they're doing. What does the singer even need it? Are their dynamics already exactly what we need? Is this needed at all? Do you
Yeah.
need it? Is it going to color it? And then add it in if you need it. Don't start at that point where you've got it going through all that, because you don't know if you're going to you don't necessarily need that. But in the box, I mean, we're lucky we can come out for our Neve summon mixer or our thermionic culture summon mixer. So you're kind of in the box, but then you're bringing it out of a nice analog summon mixer. So you're getting a bit more of that space and that kind of sound that you get from the Neve or the thermionic. So I like that on the back end of the mix. Really, I think it adds something, especially you've got like the air function and a bit of width or whatever if you need it. You can end up chucking too much onto each channel when there's not actually anything wrong with it in the first place. And the same when you're recording it, you don't necessarily need to have all that going on.
Yeah, I think sometimes like I remember when, like for mixing stuff, like I had a habit of like just putting the stuff on for the sake of it. So when I was recording before I started working with you, it was just all I had was some mic pre's. Didn't
Mm,
have any outboard EQ or compressor, and I thought I really needed it. So when it
mm,
came to mixing, everything had like the Universal Audio tape machine, the 800, and then
yeah,
it had the Waves nonlinear summer or NLS, whatever it is, or the virtual summing mix, whatever they call it, the virtual console collection. It's
yeah,
going through that, then going through like a Pultec EQ and 1176 because I thought that's what I needed to do in it. So it's like hundreds and hundreds of EQs and stuff across the
yeah,
entire track, and then like you take it all off and go, it sounds a lot better.
yeah. I know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you sometimes you just, I can't quite get this to sound right, and sometimes you just go back to like take everything off, just bypass everything for a bit and listen to what was actually going on. You're going, well, that's not the best drum sound in the world, but with everything else on top of it, which has been produced around that drum sound, it actually sounds better.
It fits,
Even though
yeah.
if you solo the drums, you think, oh, that could do with that, but it just fits sometimes. And you've spent all that time trying to get this drum sound that you think is a great drum sound, and then it's not really happened.
And then for mixing, do you like? Is it always is it like a formula? Do you like take it every song at a time? Do you ever do anything like left field?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the approach will be like make everything, if it's got a certain sound, the band are after something, everything's going through a tape machine or everything's driven through something because that's the sound they want, or everything's going the vocals through amps. I think it's just mixing to the artist, really. Obviously, you're making sure technically it's all right. It's not all muddy and it's not too harsh. It's not too bright. But I think in terms of effects on mixes, you're actually trying to capture what that band is about and what they've tried to capture in their performances and bringing out all those elements. So there might be lots of elements going on. So making sure you can hear the elements when you need to be hearing the elements, or if it's just a big wall of sound, making sure it's a big wall of sound. And then, but so there's that creative aspect of the mixing and there's the technical, both trying to get them both to go hand in hand. And I'm switching between speakers, and I'm also listening to everything on headphones, and I might listen to everything on a little Bluetooth speaker. I might go out in the car and listen to things. All those usual tricks, really. See, you're using your eggs mainly for mixing, aren't you? There, I've got
I've got Avantones. I've got my little Avantone mix cubes, but they're just in storage at the moment while I'm waiting for a house.
Yeah, and they're good. Whatever you're comfortable on as well. I mean, I'm on the Adams A77Xs. I have a sub with that, and then I really like my Monitor Audio studio speakers. It's the only studio set they made really because they're a hi-fi company, but they're really good. Like them for mixing, not necessarily for tracking. KRKs not really. I usually just keep them for tracking. I've been mixing on the Adams, but then checking it on other systems. Then I've spoken to engineers and producers about the in the box thing and going through a desk, and I was at a studio over in Alicante. Studio Sacramento, great studio with a great producer there. And he was doing A/B tests of his mixes just in the box and then coming out of his duality and splitting everything through the channels. And he said the difference was, minimal, but it was there and it was noticeable if you came through the desk. I mean, he can record the desk, so it's not as much work as just a pure analog desk because you can actually save it.
It's a fade of with the dualities and the SSL stuff because I got the Sigma. Like you can record the fader movements and stuff. That's great.
But he definitely swears that he can hear a difference, and he was trying different converters as well. So he's got his studio. He tried a few different ones, as like say Martin at Red Kite would do, and and they hear the difference, and he would definitely mix out of onto the desk. But he said the difference when you add plugins on your mix was much more noticeable. And the plugins do something when you're mixing in the box that get rid of that space and just everything sounds a little bit more brittle and not as open. And then when you run it through the desk. So it was when the plugins were on the difference was much bigger. And other people have A/B'd and other people have A/B'd and can't hear any difference and love just mixing in the box and say there's no difference. There are a lot of big mix engineers just mixing the box.
I think the first one was like Andrew Sheps. He did. I think it was Hosier's when a Hosier's record. He just did it as a trial, sent it off, and they went, "Yeah, sounds great. A couple of changes, and it's done."
Yeah, I think you just compensate for those things anyway. When you're mixing, you compensate to get the space and to get the things. But I think once there's the tons of plugins, and you just.
Is it the experience thing?
Yeah, ears, experience.
It's just like it takes time to kind of understand what you're missing, and
like someone like Mike Fraser won't start adding loads of effects to your mix. It doesn't need it. You've done that. That's the production. You've given him everything you need, your effects. But he's an absolute master craftsman at balancing, taking it, making sure that kick just sits, making that snare sits, the vocal sits in the right place, the guitar change he uses, everything just has its place and just sounds massive and is just perfectly placed. But he's not someone. It's like some bands, they give you a track and it's got no production on it. It's just recorded them in a room and they go, we want this to sound like such and such. And you're like, well, it doesn't because there's no production or anything on it. Then that's a different way of mixing. Then that's like almost like a remixer or maybe a bedroom producer, a bedroom mixer who's creating music. So someone's given you a basic song, but they want it to sound like so-and-so's album. And then that's a different thing because then you are kind of mixing it to that, but you're also producing those sounds. You've got to use lots of effects and lots of things to get it to sound like that, and that's fine as long as you've got the time to do that and that's what everyone wants, and they've recorded something that you can do that with, then there's no problem with that either. But a lot of the big mix engineers, they're just there to make sure what you've recorded and captured and your production is presented in the best way it possibly can for all the platforms and media it's going to be put out on.
When people are sending you stuff, what do you recommend? Like, what would you recommend to them how do you like things to be sent to you? Do you like Pro Tools sessions? If it's like a Logic session where you prefer to do it yourself?
Well, yeah, if it's on Pro Tools, they can send me the Pro Tools sessions because I'll be mixing within Pro Tools. I might strip everything off if there's loads of stuff that doesn't need to be on there. But no, I'd like to see what's going on in their Pro Tools session. If they've been working on Logic, then I'll get them to send me WAVs, but I'll get them to send me the dry WAVs and the affected ones separate, and I'll have them underneath each other on playlists, and I'll see, they're trying to go for that. I can hear what they're doing with their effects, but I could get a much better effect by running it through an actual tape echo rather than that plugin they used on Logic or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'll have them both. And sometimes their one just fits with the effects on, just fits perfectly in the mix, so I'll just use it. But I'll have them underneath each other, and just so I can hear what they've done. So I'll ask for them both.
And then, do you get monitor mixes off them, or like a rough mix?
Yeah, it's good to have a monitor mix, because before you even agree to mix something, it's nice to hear what they've got and what they've done and what you're going to be dealing with before you could. How long is it going to take to mix? If you've never listened to it, you have no idea.
Yeah,
there could be 200 tracks of orchestral parts going on and backing vocals and layered guitars and all this, and you're like, well, I can't do that in half a day. This is a massive song that needs to be a massive radio hit, and it's got all these elements that are just going to take a day to mix. Getting a monitor mix from the end of the session. Sometimes those desk mixes at the end of sessions are the mixes, they're great. You haven't overthought it. You've driven it through a nice analog desk, and it just has has
and then you spend your time chasing your tail trying to recapture the mix that you
magic
captured.
of that. Yeah. But so like WAV files, affected WAV files, raw WAV files, all the Pro Tools sessions, and edited, tuned, and comped. Unless you're going to ask me to do that, and that's separate. That's separate from mixing. That's got to be discussed beforehand. About yourself.
If it's Pro Tools or Logic, I'll get them to send me those sessions, and I'll just do it myself because it's easier. Because most of the time, if the people I've been working with, like then they're all right to start recording, like GarageBand as well. Just send me the sessions, and I'll convert it into what I need it for, because it's a bit easier doing that. Pro Tools as well, yeah, it's fine. But otherwise, it would be, I normally set up a Dropbox transfer link. Yeah. And say, just upload your files to me this way, so then you don't have to worry about WeTransfers and limits and everything.
Which is a pain when you start getting everything in separate folders.
Yeah, and like the Google Drive's just, I'm sure you've had experience with Google Drive.
Headache. Yeah. Get set up a Dropbox folder.
Yeah, I normally share that, and then just say like it's an upload one, so they just send it to me, and it automatically comes onto my computer. Yeah, no, it's just that I normally try and for Logic and Pro Tools, they just send me the session, I'll convert it, and I'll do it. Yeah, I remember like one of the sessions I just got caught out with the editing. And I was like, I think that was an attended session as well. And it was just like, okay, we've lost. It was quite a long one. We ended up having like a decent budget for it, but could have been saved a lot of time. It was one of the things I should have stipulated.
Yeah, well, you should learn your lesson and make sure you stipulate that beforehand. Same with mix changes.
Please make sure that these, like, the files have been edited, crossfaded, and that everything's there. Everything that you want on the mix is there.
Yeah, because you can still go down a rabbit hole with mix changes as well. And if you haven't put a limit on it, if you just said, I'll mix it until you're happy with it, then that can go on. And then you're chasing your tail, and bands are changing their minds and going back to what they had before. Actually, could you put that back? It was better before. And it's just a headache. Everyone gets frustrated. Yeah. You end up doing loads of work for free.
I normally do 2 mix changes.
Well,
normally captures it.
If someone asks me to mix 2 songs a day, then they get 2 sets of mix changes. Because I always think you can't just do one, because you change something, it's going to affect something else in the mix. So there might be something else then that needs to be addressed. So if I'm expected to mix 2 songs in a day, it's 2 sets of mix changes. I'm not going to do 2, like I spend half a day mixing a song and then a day on mix changes, which bands will try and get away with. But then what you really wanted was to book a day. Spending a day on a mix is a much better mix than spending half a day and then a day on mix changes, because when you're doing mix changes, you're just pulling apart the mix, and it's falling apart most of the time if you're overdoing them. You can be on your 10th lot of mix changes, and they're asking you to try production stuff out on guitars now all of a sudden, or can you add a tambourine, or can you do this? And it's like, well, no, that should be done in recording. And then if someone pays me a day for a mix, then that will be, depending on the rate, that'll be between 3 and 5 sets of mix changes. Because I always think you can get it a lot close. If you've got a day to do it, you should be able to get it pretty close. But offering like the 5 mix changes means that they know they can leave with something they're happy with. There's plenty of lots of mix changes that, for their money, for paying you for a song per day, in their minds, they can be a lot happier with it, because they know they can make those tweaks from spending that money. But generally, you don't need to do 5 lots of mix changes, because you've had a whole day to mix it. It's 2 if it's half a day, and kind of up to 5 if it's a full day for mixing. And I like to do song a day because it's nice to step away from it. It's nice to come back to it. It's nice to have the
Yeah.
time to try things. It's but some stuff is so, like if I recorded it, it's just not going to need it. I can do it in half a day because it's almost there. I know what's wrong. I can do it pretty quick, and I can get 2 done in a day.
Do you use templates? So have you got like a template you use for mixing, or do you just like kind of build it as you go?
Yeah, I build it as I go. I know a lot of people work from templates and they like templates. A lot of people have mixing chains, they have guitar chains, vocal chains, all that stuff. I have regular things that I go to, like I think this needs so I use that compressor or use that reverb or whatever for certain things. So I have those things, but I don't necessarily have templates set up. I might pull in my auxes and my master fader and things like that, which are already set up and saved as templates. But once I've got a mix and I've done a lot of things, I'll import those then into the next song. So the bass chain and the chains on the guitars, the chains on the drums, the auxes for those as well, and the effects. I might pull them in, just import them into the next one as we go along.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit different. I suppose I got things saved in Pro Tools as like track templates.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I always end up bringing in is I've just got VCAs for like the groups, and like my drums are always grouped as Group D,
Yeah,
and then I think my bass is always B, and
yeah.
like it's certain things. So it's just easy for me to kind of like turn things on and off. And
Yeah, I mean, I'll always have stuff coming out in the same order and the same
yeah,
kind of outputs and the same kind of things. That's I always have it like that.
Mm.
Yeah, but there's 2 different ways of working. I grew up in a way that wasn't possible to have those templates, but
That's
once
true,
you'd
yeah.
mixed the first song, you had your chain, so you had your vocal going through that chain, so it would stay set up for the next song. Always try to use Pro Tools as a tape machine and a mixer as much as I can with outboard. Yeah, there's no reason why you can't use this quicker if you got your templates for certain things. There's no reason why not. A lot of people use them. But yeah, I have certain elements of it saved, but not whole mix templates, not to the extent that you would.
No, the other one then is about referencing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get the bands send you playlists of tracks that they like or
Yeah.
like similar things? Does that
Yeah,
help?
drum sounds they like, records they like, what you kind of hear in this, what kind of where do you see this sitting and things like that. It's nice to get some references, definitely.
Yeah. It made a massive difference. So one of the bands I did recently is just like they just sent me a massive long list of like tracks, and so because it was coming in recording as well, just made a massive like okay, I know what drum sound we want
Yeah,
based on the sort of like approach. And okay, we want to be a bit edgier, we want to be edgy but dry and like distorted but not too many effects and everything. So it
yeah,
made it a bit easier.
yeah.
And
It
like having
does.
that,
When yeah, it does.
and it's like
But you might
coming,
have that discussion. You might say, "Oh, I kind of hear that." You might hear the monitor mix and go, "Oh, I kind of hear this sounding like a such and such a record," or "Do you know this record? What
yeah,
they did there with the vocals or whatever?" And then that might be what you go with. But yeah,
yeah,
definitely getting references from them, especially if you don't know the band and you didn't record it.
yeah, that's true. It makes it a bit easier when you have done it yourself.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
No, I think.
No, I think it kind of covers everything. If you guys have any questions for us about any of the things that we've discussed, leave us a comment in the video. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts from, just drop us a message at podcast@sessionrecall.com. And if the production, the mixing stuff is something that you're interested in, we're due to be running a workshop is it March or April? It's April, isn't it?
Yeah, April the 11th. 3 days.
This is a clip for TikTok again. There we are.
Don't turn up in March, John. Because I won't be there.
No. We got a workshop in April, and you can find out more details at sessionrecall.com/Leeders Vale. Thanks again, Nick, and I'll see you see you next week.
See you next week.
Another episode about
Do
mastering.
I have to wear this t-shirt again?
Yeah, and you have to also have the same angle like me.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be a bit sunnier by the time I come in next week.
Yeah. All right.
Bye-bye.